So, I don't know if you guys have heard, it's kind of groundbreaking news. Joe Biden retracted his statements about not choosing to pardon his son, Hunter Biden. And Hunter Biden is now a free man. It's going to be an interesting thing to get into because there's actually a lot of lessons on leadership here that I think we can all learn from.
Strong and wild, we rise up high. Conquer fears, won't let them reside. Heartbeats pound as we take the dive. Living now feels so alive. Heart steel veins glowing bright. Fitness gone in the dead of night. Dating game, we got the sight. Crushing finance, career eyesight. Man up now, we own it true. Breaking change, just me and you. Success stories everywhere. Living life beyond compare.
Alrighty. So this is really interesting. As you guys couldn't tell, I enjoy politics a little bit. And so anytime major groundbreaking stories occur, I I have to be interested. Because I really care about the future of the nation, not just for not just for myself, but for my future kids. Like I want the best possible. And especially with these last few election cycles, we're getting probably not the best people to choose from. And just as I've gotten older and I've been looking at some of their actions, it's it's interesting. You can kind of the more you study it, the more you learn and the more you grow, the more you can spot some of these distinct human behaviors. And I thought it was very interesting because just to paint the picture of Hunter Biden and why I don't understand how Biden got elected to begin with, because all this information came out prior. So one of Joe Biden's other sons, Beau Biden, he actually died of brain cancer. And after he died of brain cancer, Hunter slept with his wife. Think about how screwed that up, or yeah, screwed that up. How screwed up that is in a family dynamic. Like, first off, what the heck? Now, from there, he ended up, and that's what the whole Hunter Biden laptop thing was, where they were like kind of hiding it from the media or like saying it wasn't true, but it all was true. And on that, there was international collusion. I believe there's collusion with Russia. And then there was a lot of proof of him smoking crack. He ended up buying a gun illegally. And he got charged. He got 3 felonies. Like, this isn't a crime. This is a felony times 3. And Biden had said throughout the entire thing, and his entire campaign as well, or his entire camp, I should say, had said, no, he's not going to pardon his son. And Biden, as recently as July, had said, I will not. I will let the justice system play itself out. I will not be pardoning my son. And then he's found guilty, and boom, what do you know? He's pardoned. So before I can continue to drag on to how disgusting all of this just seems to me, I want to bring on my good friend Josh, Renegade Wingman. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well today, sir. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing a lot better. I think I may have shared with you, or maybe I didn't get into greater detail, but 2 weeks ago, yeah, it was 2 weeks ago now, or like a week and a half. Yeah, a week and a half ago, not 2 weeks, week and a half. I had, I guess, the apartment above me completely flood, or there was some type of leak, and it got so bad, and there was so much moisture in my wall that the large mirror that I had fell over, shattered everywhere. And in addition to that, it also sent a lot of glass shards into the toilet. So then once it first flushed, it messed up all the plumbing. So if I would go and flush the toilet, water would shoot out the sink. So it was this insane mess where I didn't have a properly working toilet and I didn't have a mirror. I mean, come on. I didn't have a mirror or anything until officially today. It officially has been fixed today. I don't know why my apartment complex drags their feet, but it's finally done. So I am having a good day. How about yourself? What's new in your world?
I'm having a good day. Crypto markets are going in and moving in a very entertaining direction. So, hence the background to point out how bananas things are kind of going right now and how bananas they will be going soon. But we are talking about bananas topics as well today. So it's like, yeah, this background seems appropriate for this week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And before we even get into it, you have a webinar coming up, right?
That I do. So for those of you that may or may not be interested in capitalizing on this current run, I had done a webinar at the beginning of the year on this, and quite a few folks were there, and a lot of people that paid attention there are very happy right now, and they're about to be a lot happier as things go on and progress. But for a lot of people thinking that, oh my gosh, everything is too late, I've already missed the train, you still got some time. So I'm hosting a special webinar that will be happening this Sunday at 12 p.m. Pacific. So please check out my social media, Instagram. You can find a little registration link on my stories there. And that'll take you to the link where you can register for the webinar. So I highly encourage you guys to check out check it out so you can capitalize on what's going on and be in a very happy place in the middle of next year.
Good stuff, man. Yeah, and I will. I didn't put it down below, but I will go ahead and put that. If you're watching this on the replay, I will go ahead and put that down below if you want to click that link. As Josh said, it's going to be this Sunday, and dude, it really is crazy the stuff that you've taught me and the way that I've been able to kind of grow some of that wealth. And we've just been seeing all of our friends just make money, and in like a. What's crazy is your angle. It teaches money. It teaches people how to make money in a very consistent and safe way, and it lets you know the risks if you want to raise that risk level and go into some meme coins and things like that. Like you let everybody know everything of what they're getting into, and it's crazy how you're like rarely wrong in your analysis.
Well, thank you, and I'm definitely very much on the. I want to show you what's going on the playing field so that way you can make the best judgment and assessment for your risk tolerance. Because again, for some people, it's, you want to be very conservative and, go with a few tried and true things. That's a very good way to go. Others of you that, want to be total absolute degenerates and figure out where the next 1000X coin is, that's definitely a way to go. So I'm not one of those hey, copy everything I do and you'll do great, because I'm the first one to admit I get a lot of plays right, I get a lot of plays wrong too. There's so much that goes on in the space, but the big and more important thing is just knowing what is at stake, what the field looks like, and how you can best position yourself based on your own level of risk tolerance. So that way, at the end of the day, you come out happy. And again, I've got no personal, stake in, I'm not getting any kickbacks or anything from any coins or projects or anything like that. I'm just saying hey, here's what the field looks like. Here's where their opportunity lies. And then it's up to you to figure out what's the overall best strategy for yourself. Because again, I don't know your level of risk tolerance and I don't know what your budget is. So, some budgets, some plays make sense for giant budgets, other plays make sense for smaller budgets. But yeah, I'm just super huge on letting people know exactly what's in the field, because again, I'm nothing inherently magical myself, but I stick to a few consistent principles that will always take care of me. So it works out okay.
Good stuff. Well, I'm very much looking forward to it. Let's get back to the topic at hand. So when we're talking about this whole Hunter Biden thing, personally, again, because it was so crazy. For example, my girlfriend, she voted for Biden back then. And I had asked her, do you know what his son did? And the reason why I'm asking this is because his son is a reflection of the father and the father's leadership. And I told her the story about Bo and how Bo had passed away from brain cancer, and then Hunter had sex with his wife. And she was like, "No, I had like no idea." And I got a little frustrated again because it's just like, how can you vote if you're not like if you're not a knowledgeable voter? Like, how do you not know this information? Because like to me, morally speaking, at least, that's the whole thing was just a serious problem. Like outside of the other crap that he did, that is beyond me. It is just beyond me. And so when I was thinking about it, I was blown away that Biden not only lied or misled the American. Well, he did lie because he said specifically himself in July. So not only did he lie to the American people, but then he walked everything back, and I assume would just, oh, like, yeah, it, whatever. Like he's just not going to deal with it. He's done. He's checked out. Um, and to me, it's just like it's not forgivable. However, when we were talking about this last night, you guys brought up a very interesting point that like I didn't even register because to me it's right and wrong. But you guys brought up, well, if you put yourself in his shoes, like would you do the same for your son while you have the power to do so? And it really got me thinking. I was like, huh, you're right. So I wanted to ask you your thoughts on this entire thing and just trying to pick your brain on, I guess, these tough situations, that burden of leadership that he's forced to follow here, and he had to make this tough decision. I just want your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's not an easy decision, and I think at the you're not trying to say I know exactly what's going on in this guy's head or like defend him or condemn him or whatever. But I think probably at the time when he was making those statements of like, "Hey, I'm going to let the Justice Department, do its own thing," he was probably thinking that there was going to be, with the lawyers he can afford, they were going to, find a way to get him off, get him exonerated, something like that. Because I mean, Hunter Biden, let's be real, like seems like a fun dude to party with, but at the same time, like when you talk about politically speaking, he makes himself a very, very large, easy target to point and throw darts at. I mean, you can't get a bigger, easier, more public facing target to just throw a lot of darts at if you're on the opposition. So that for sure is definitely a massive and major challenge there. But going back to when Biden came out and said, "Hey, I'm going to pardon him," that to me wasn't surprising because one, given Biden's age, he's pretty much 1 foot in the grave anyway. So it's like, hey, who cares? What the hell? But two, having already lost another kid before, um, and again having a kid that's in trouble, it is going to be a big burden. And I don't care, what side of the spectrum you're on. Like if it was the shoes on the other foot, right, and Donald Jr. was in trouble or something like that, I'm sure Trump would be bailing him out as well or giving him a pardon too. So, from that father son dynamic, for sure, if your kid is in trouble, it's going to be a very, very tough position to be in. And you're going to do everything that you can in your power to help out your kid. Sometimes to their detriment because you just want to be a good parent. But when you're a parent like that, it definitely changes and shifts your perspective. But when you throw on top of that the other added thing of like, okay, now you're the leader of the free world, right? You're the leader of the president of the United States, and you do have that power to snap your fingers and make things happen. I'm sure there's a lot of long conversations about this and about, hey, we got to weigh this. We got to weigh the pros. We got to weigh the cons. We also have to weigh like how can we possibly spin this? How can we do this? So I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision to be made, and so it does speak to like that larger topic of the burden of leadership because oftentimes when you're in leadership positions, right, you are going to have very tough and very difficult decisions that you're going to have to make and how you have to manage them. And it's really tough too when you've got people in your circle that you care about that also happen to be liabilities. That's a really, really huge thing that you have to deal with. So it's one of those things where, I look at what some people are saying. I'm just like, hey, look, like if you were in that situation, right? If you had your kid, he was in trouble and he screwed up, and you have the power to help them out, most people probably would help them out. Or if you're in the opposite situation where, if you're a hunter yourself and you've been going around messing up a lot, right? You would want someone to help bail you out in that situation, that scenario. So, this move to me isn't that surprising. I think any other politician would do the exact same thing for their kid. But I think the good, or the interesting thing to extrapolate out of this is that real broader question around, the burden of leadership and the difficulty of decisions, which, I'll pose it back to you. I'm pretty sure that, you've had a situation, right, where you've had to deal with a question of leadership, and there was a very tough, difficult decision that had to be made. I'm sure you can reflect, or at least sympathize a little bit with that scenario.
Absolutely. And I kind of want to turn it back first before I dive into that. And I want to turn it back because it's like, me personally, because when I think about it, okay, one of my sons died. My other son not only slept with his wife after he died, but then caused all these other issues that then affect me. I think by pardoning that, like, where's the moral aspect? Because I don't think that if my son did all those actions, that I'd be able to do that. So that again, it's like it's just a constant bailout. And when I look at a leader, I also look at, especially if they're a father, I look at how their kids are raised, like, or how their kids act. I don't get to see how their kids were raised, but I see how their kids act. And if I'm seeing Hunter acting this way and then still getting a bailout afterwards, it's just a joke. That's not a strong leader. So I just wanted to make that statement first before we go into it. But yeah, it does point out when you have to make some difficult decisions. There were times, plenty of times, where essentially, because I work in the IT field, where we have to go ahead and release code, and maybe code isn't ready right away, or maybe it probably should have a little bit more QA stuff that needs to be done. But when you have a lot of interconnected apps, well, you run into an issue that if the one bug is so bad and it could potentially blow something up, it's better just to get out that fix first, instead of waiting to make sure everything is working right, but your shipping software isn't working. So if your shipping software isn't working and you're trying to do all the best QA you possibly can do, well, you're not able to get anything out the door, so you're not able to generate any revenue. So at my last job, I had to do this actually multiple times because of how inconsistent one of the applications was, where I had to tell them and have them push things through. And the way that I kind of handled it was essentially just go ahead and do it. I will take the heat. I will take the blame. Let me take care of it after the fact. But right now, what is most important is to get something up and running. And then if it comes with a bunch of minor bugs afterwards, okay, we'll deal with those as they pop up. But we need to get this main thing fixed. And that's one thing that is blowing my mind, because essentially, too, with this flooding, like, my property manager never takes accountability. He always says to me, like, when I come at him with something, he's like, I'm not saying you're lying, but my team said something different. So I'll have to circle back to them. And I'm like, dude, and I it was so funny because, like, when that happened, like, last week, I then took a video of the issue with the toilet and came back down and I said, see, your team is lying to you. And I just did it to him again today, where I'm like pointing out you're lying, or I'm pointing out you're refusing to take accountability. And I think that that's one of the hardest burdens of leadership, is being able to take accountability for your actions or those you're associated with. What are
Yeah,
your
and
thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that's a good I think that's a really good point you bring up, and I think that also ties back into what you were talking about earlier, which is the quality of leadership. And so with those hard decisions, right? How do you vet a good leader, right? And a good leader is someone that does take accountability not only for themselves, but also takes accountability for their team and understands that the buck stops with them. And I think to kind of your point, right, where you see someone's, you kind of judge a little the father a bit based on the actions of the son, right? And so I would kind of poise back, like if the son is doing all this, run around doing all this crazy stuff and everything, then I mean, at this point, at this stage in the game, would it not be a surprise then, that you get bailed out, right? Because at this age and this stage, it's like he's not going to learn the lessons now, right? He's not going to get the like, well, this is the stuff that he should have been getting when he was like, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, like 15, right? When it's like, hey, you get in trouble, you're on your own, you have to figure it out, right? So, it just goes to that reflection that you're talking about, as far as like the caliber of leadership. And again, not saying that bad leaders don't have to face difficult decisions too, but it's the way in which they take accountability for those decisions that they make that really defines who the good ones are, who the bad ones are, as well as again, if anybody you're following somebody, right, whether you're at a job and you have to, or you're deciding who you want to vote for or who you want to like believe in or whatever reason, whenever you have a leader, always look at how they take accountability for actions, right? Is it that like, do they just take 100% accountability, even if it's something that's, hey, it's not necessarily directly their fault, but happens under their watch. So they're like, hey, I'm going to take accountability for it. We're going to try to figure out the best way to move on. Or are they always looking for, a million other excuses that it was everything else? The Mercury was in retrograde and the moon was at half cycle. So the tides were slightly off. So that affected the gravitational pull. So naturally, I was just a little unbalanced. And then, that made that happen. Like, you got to take a look and see what where the buck stops.
Absolutely. And I want to do a little bit of a little ping pong kind of here. I personally, I think that the ability to take accountability is the most important part of leadership. And I'm just curious your thoughts on this. Like, like, first off, why does it, like, I don't know if it's just me growing up or what, or if it's a levels of consciousness type of thing, but why does it seem like it's like people are struggling to take accountability more and more today? Or if not that, what makes it so difficult for people to take accountability?
One, I would say that it's hard to like admit when you screw up, right? Because again, we all have our egos, our own little sense of like pride and whatnot. So to like admit that like, hey, me, awesome master of my own universe, like dropped the ball and messed up. It's always a hard, difficult thing to do. So it's not necessarily easy. Is it the right thing to do? Yes. Is it an easy thing to do? Not so much. But then two, I would say a lot of it too just happens to be the end result of kind of that, you know, everyone gets a trophy kind of mentality where, for the
Mm,
last 20, 30 years specifically, there's been like a big shift from, before that, like parents kind of didn't care at all. And they're just like, "Oh, cool, you're off to the races and you do whatever you do. Just don't die. That's the only
exactly.
direction you get, right?" Like in the 80s, right? They had to have those commercials that ran saying it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? So like people be
I
like, oh
remember.
crap, where are my children? So we kind of went from that shift all the way, and like for a little brief spot, there was like, okay, cool. There's a good little balance, and then we swung the pendulum a little too far. Where now it's like, oh my gosh, like the children aren't at fault for anything, and you can ask anybody that's been a teacher for a long time; they'll definitely tell you there was a shift where before it was like, hey, the teacher says you're messing up, like you need to start doing better. Versus now, it's like the teacher's the enemy, and it's like, well, my kid is perfect. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you, the teacher over here? Like you don't know what you're doing. So we kind of took that responsibility away from kids in as far as like how they grow up and how they're raised. So that I would say we're seeing more of that effect now in adulthood because again, when you take those sort of parameters or those bars off in the raising side of the equation, well then yeah, like oh, it doesn't matter if I win or lose. I came out okay, or oh, it's not my fault. It's totally the teacher's fault, right? So because my parents said so. So that's the example that they said. So when you go out in the workforce and you're an adult, it's like, oh well, this project didn't get done. You're just a bad boss, right? It's like, how can you expect someone to have that sense instilled in them? Because it's a lot like what Denzel Washington said about kids when they wind up like, oh, when they're 18, 19, 20, whatever, they wind up, they get arrested, they get in jail. And he said, yeah, by that time it's too late. Like it should have started at the home. That's where you had your chance to shape and to mold. Because by the time they get out into society and society corrects them, it's far too late. So I think that's where it's more of that parental cultural shift that needs to kind of happen to get people more prepared for that accepting of accountability, as well as a little shift in the Western sort of philosophy around accountability as well. Because in a lot of the Eastern philosophies, especially like in Japan, they don't really have the concept of like, well, this is someone's fault. It's more of like, this situation happened. How do we get out of it? We don't really care about blame. We just care more about solving the problem. Where here in the West, we're a little bit more focused on blame. Who's the fault? Who do we shame? Who do we, reprimand, X, Y, Z, rather than being a little bit more focused and concentrated on like, hey, all right, this did happen. And yes, you may be responsible for it. But more importantly than that, we want to know what's the solution moving forward. So we should probably shift a little bit of that emphasis off of like finding someone to blame to just like, hey, we just want to know what happens so we can move on. We'll deal with it later.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting about this, because I know we've talked a lot about. Sorry, I'm cooking a chicken right now, and it looks like it's getting smoky. I'm gonna have to text my girlfriend. So I know we've spoken a lot about business, and we've like grown in those areas. I mean, you're extremely successful. For me, was able AJ message me if you want to hop on and talk about this topic because I think it's super interesting. So we've talked a lot about business and a lot of talking right now about accountability. That first time that I had to take accountability for a mistake, I was so scared to do so. And now it's almost like second nature where if my team messes up, I say it from the start. Like, I apologize and I take, well, not I apologize, but I take full accountability for the failure that occurred right here. Now I just want to figure out what we can do to go ahead and move forward. But it's always like I take full accountability. And it's now like natural to the point where I no longer feel any type of nerves about saying that. I'm not scared of an outcome. I own this situation and I want to find that solution. It's weird how fluid that becomes. Did you have that type of shift in your life?
Yeah, I definitely did for sure. Because, I mean, I've got siblings. So when you're the oldest, you just learn that you're kind of like the semi third parent, basically, is what that means. But also, you just learn very quickly that a lot of things are going to go wrong that aren't your fault. It's going to fall on your lap some way, shape, or form. So you're just like, all right, might as well just get used to this. So that kind of happened to me. Fortunately for me, it kind of happened to me early on in more of my like teenage years. So it's definitely more like, all right, well, I've got to be responsible here and stuff. And even though this is something beyond my control or out of my realm, it still falls under, hey, you're the older brother. You got to make sure that your siblings are taken care of and are okay. So that was what kind of started that shift. And so then once I got out and started like working, I was very fortunate. One of the very first organizations I was with was a startup company, and they would always say anytime something goes south, we're just like, hey, look, guys, we don't care how we got here. We just care about how we get out of it. So we don't care about the blame game. We just care about how we can move forward. So whatever it is, let's just figure out how we got here. We need to know how we got here so we don't wind up here again. So that for sure was, for me, set the professional standard and set the professional tone of, okay, cool. Like it's just more important to just take the accountability. So that way, again, there's understanding of how this situation happened and occurred. So that way it doesn't happen and occur in the future. So that to me is, where I consider myself fortunate to have sort of gained that shift in my professional working career.
That's good stuff. Yeah, I've got so many stories about this now, especially as I'm thinking about it. But I do have my my good friend AJ. up here, and he's got a story to share with us.
So I just keying in on those last few minutes. In my industry, we do exactly what you guys were talking about with like, hey, let's figure out what's going on, prevent it from happening again. But I do have a fun accountability story from my my good old Navy days.
There we go.
I was a submarine nuclear reactor operator on originally signed to the USS Seawolf SSN 21, and I just got back from riding the USS Ohio SSGN 726, and Seawolf's been in the dry dock for a bit here, going through her first major modernization period, and we're going in there to do maintenance, just a regular trip point calibration check, very simple maintenance for reactor controls division. And we have 4 cabinets called P&I, primary nuclear instrumentation. So that's taking all our pressure, flow, temperature, and nuclear power range is information and send it to maneuvering so we know what's going on with the plant. Well, we're shut down, cold, solid plant. We're doing trip point calibration check on P&I 3's temperature cold. And P&I 3 and P&I 1 are right next to each other, both built by Eaton, look identical. P&I 2 and 4 are on the other side of instrumentation, and they're built by Westinghouse. They're identical. Fun fact, Westinghouse ends up buying out Eaton, so the whole redundancy, one fault won't fail all 4 channels bullshit now because one company owns all 4 channels. So I'm the reader, or I'm the worker. My reader tells me, hey, take T cold 3 and put it to test. I taking T cold 3, put it in test. I point at T cold 3 and say it all. I accidentally grab T cold 1s and put that one in test, and it causes an alarm on the reactor plant control panel. So automatically we stop maintenance. It happened to be a day that squadron and naval reactors were on the ship. So we go back to our barge. We get a critique, which is the formal word for it. It's really a freaking witch hunt. They tell you it's not a witch hunt, but it's really a witch hunt.
Right.
And I was asked during the critique if I had performed maintenance prior to the incident, but after my ride from the Ohio. Nervous, first time in one. I said no when I should have said yes. Literally 5 minutes after the critique's done, I run back to my EDMC, which he's the top enlisted guy for nukes. So he's the senior chief or master chief in charge of the nukes. I tell him, hey, I screwed up in the critique. I should have said yes. I did maintenance like 2 weeks ago. I didn't know when to interject my first time in a critique. He said, oh, don't worry about it. Well, no biggie. It's just a small one. 2 days later, I am standing in front of my commanding officer in dress blues with what we call the green table. I am going to non-judicial punishment, Captain's Master for Article 107, false official statement, which states, any person who knowingly signs or writes a statement to be false is guilty of this. Within a week, I am off the ship. I'm up at Squadron, and Squadron's trying to figure out what to do with me.
Even though immediately afterwards you're like, look, I was nervous. I said the wrong thing. This is the truth. I don't know how to handle it. And you got punished for telling the truth and trying to resolve the problem immediately.
Yeah, that's the day I learned that integrity only gets you so far in the Navy. It depends on how much they like you. And yeah, I was a little bit of a shit sailor in my early days. I'll fully admit to that. It's like, yeah, never doing that again. Then I learned a few years later, I'm on the Henry M. Jackson. That's the ship I ended up going to after the Seawolf. And I'm fully qualified, second class. I get called to maneuvering to take the watch. I'm like, what's going on? Like, oh, we screwed up something. We got to go to the wardroom for a critique. I'm like, oh God. So I go in there, relieve my my CDAD. That's what you call your mentor on the ship. Bobby Waples. Freaking love Bobby. Guy was like full blown Asperger's syndrome. Like he'd sit there for 6 hours in the chair just shaking. You leave your notes in maneuvering. You got penises drawn throughout your notes. That kind of guy. So they end up giving me another log sheet to copy down logs so I can keep that stuff going. They take the official log sheet with them to to the wardroom. And they're like sitting there during the critique. And this is all secondhand knowledge that I got from it. They're like interrogating Waples. And they're like, Petty Officer Waples, were you on watch during this incident? And Waples just goes full like 4th and 5th Amendment mode. I do not recall the events of that day. They're like pushing the log sheet in front of him. Is this not your signature, Petty Officer Waples? I do not recall the events of that day. Just over and over and like just stonewall broken record them the whole entire time.
Oh, that's hilarious. Like, and Yeah, it's interesting too, how you sometimes when you go through that situation and you have the chance to take accountability, you see the reactions or like the consequences of not doing it, what happens, it kind of internalizes into you like, okay, maybe let me try doing it the other way. Because a lot of times we're far more like the fear of what the negative consequences are going to be are actually way less if we're just upfront and accountable about it versus if we aren't, then it's like it snowballs and becomes this whole giant thing. So more often
Well,
than
yeah,
not, when we aren't accountable, we wind up creating the scenario we're most afraid of.
it's also like you can see there's definitely some favoritism, especially in the military, because literally, like my second or third week on the ship on the Seawolf, the previous year's Sailor of the Year, he was a radioman, and this is back in 09, so the iPhone's fairly new still. He connects his iPhone to the classified server to get internet connection to watch porn. He gets a slap on the wrist at his non-judicial punishment. And like he's trying to cover it up and everything.
Wow. All right. Well,
I love that story. I think it's absolutely wild. And you know what? It really is crazy. Like when I think about this, it's a little smoky in here. Yeah, thanks. So it makes me think of like my last role. Like when I was talking earlier, when I was talking about that burden of leadership, Josh, with those different applications. Yeah, our shipping software, they had an update that needed to go through. And I remember it was late at the office that night, late in the warehouse, much later than anybody else was there. But we had everything all set and done. I was fixing a bunch of other major issues that day. And then I'm driving home, and then I get an email from that application company, and they're just asking for permission to push it through. So then I call my boss. It's like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night or whatever, and I'm on the phone with him, and I ask for his permission to go ahead and push it forward. Now, he goes ahead and gives the A-OK. And then the next day, it ends up screwing something up really bad. It screws up one of the connection points to the website. So people can't place orders online. And everyone's scrambling. I ended up getting sick because of how long I was working during that week. So in the morning, I couldn't even get on the phone until like a half hour after the start of the workday. But I did anyways because I wanted to help. And I got blamed for that. They used that as a fireable offense and ended up firing me from the job, even though I came in, even though I was sick. And then I was the only one able to solve the problem within around 20 minutes of being involved in this conversation. And I ended up having to sue that company because they were trying to block my unemployment over this stuff. And I'm like, I had so many nasty emails to the CEO because it's like, you are firing me over something that my boss approved and does not understand. And the only reason it was solved was because I even showed up at all when I shouldn't have had to. This is absurd. And so it was interesting because that's why people don't want to take accountability. They don't want to be in that worst case scenario. But I've gotten so comfortable with it because 9.9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, just being transparent works itself out.
Yeah. And it also sounds like, if you're in a situation where you're transparent and doing the right thing and you still get punished for it anyways, it's like that wasn't a situation overall that was going to work out for you long term, right?
Exactly.
So, it's really kind of
Like
a win-win where it's like, all right, cool, they're on the level and you're good, or they're not on the level and it's better for you to be removed from that situation anyways.
It's like when I got banned from Amtrak.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I can't ride an Amtrak train. I'm banned from Amtrak property.
Okay, all right. Tell me.
So my last job in Seattle area is I'd already put my notice in. I was getting ready to move to Texas. I worked for a company that contracted with Amtrak and WASDOT called Talgo. It's a Spanish rail manufacturer. They're as popular in Spain as like Boeing is to the U.S. kind of deal. Make the fastest train on rails. The Mecca to Riyadh line, or the Medina to Riyadh line over in Saudi Arabia, is all Talgo trains. It's one of those deals where the Spaniards were smart on how they set up the thing. Is like, well, there's proprietary information, so you need Talgo supervision to do maintenance on the trains. And the only way you can do maintenance on the trains is because it's all unionized, is you got to be part of the rail union. So it's kind of a thing where Talgo employees were supervising Amtrak employees. And I was getting on the bad side of the of some of the union members just because I really didn't care. I don't work for the union. I don't work for Amtrak. I work for Talgo. One of the foremen was asking me, this was like literally right before my 30th birthday. It was the day before or 2 days before my 30th birthday. It was Friday night and Saturday morning. Sunday was my 30th. So he's like, oh, what are you going to do your last 3 weeks in the rail? I'm like, I don't know. Be a bigger asshole than normal. So he instantly goes back to the Amtrak side of the yard, starts typing up an email to his boss, who is the assistant superintendent of mechanical, who forwards that on to the superintendent of mechanical. Keep in mind, the assistant superintendent of mechanical is a former California inmate who was like literally punching license plates before he got a job at Amtrak and moved his way up. His boss was a former Dallas PD officer. Kind of weird that he's in Seattle, former Dallas. I'm going to Dallas. They emailed my boss saying, hey, we got a concern. My boss calls me on my way home in the morning. I'm like, he's like, and he's going to be in that night because we always had a manager or engineer there on Saturday nights as regional train manager. And he's like, well, we'll talk about it tonight. I already planned on calling out sick because it's about to be my 30th birthday. I'm going to go out freaking party Saturday night at the club that's literally a mile away from where my job is. So I go out, do my thing Saturday night. And I'm off on Sunday and Monday. About Monday morning with my now ex, we go get breakfast because in Washington State, they start serving alcohol again at 6 a.m. So a lot of bars open up at 6 a.m. to do breakfast. Beautiful, beautiful thing.
No, are you fucking kidding me? That's ridiculous.
Well, I have stories. It's real.
Yeah. My HR lady leaves a message on my phone. Hey, you need to come in. Don't come in tonight. She forgot my days off. Monday night's my night off. But you need to come in tomorrow morning with your badge, your uniforms, your laptop, and your work phone. I'm like, what the hell did I do now? So I show up Tuesday, try to scan in. My badge isn't working. Wait for one of my Spaniard colleagues to let me in. I'm waiting. I see Stephanie walk past me a few times. Like, hey, Steph, I'm here. She's like, oh, shit. Give me about 5 minutes to meet me in Victor's office. Victor's my manager. So I go and meet them in the office, and then Stephanie's like, Alan, which is my real name, did you say when asked what you're going to do your last 3 weeks in the rail, be a bigger asshole than normal? I look right at Stephanie. Yep. She's like, you can't do that. Well, you already put your notice in. We're going to accept your notice and we're going to pay you out the next 3 weeks. We're going to fully vest your 401k. You are officially banned from Amtrak property, and they cited you as a danger to the safety and well-being of their employees. I've been working there for 3 years. I've been verbally assaulted, physically assaulted by Amtrak employees, and nothing, like right in front of their foreman and everything, and no one ever got punished. But I just say one thing and I get banned from Amtrak property.
So
That's insane.
It just goes way to get a 3 week vacation.
Yeah, right? Literally, it helped me pack up my house and move to Texas. So it was a win-win.
It really is crazy. Like I don't understand the logic about it, because us as men, and especially men of now, and AJ being a part of the Dragon Ship, just like these types of communities, these types of guys, when people bully you or you see people out of line, we don't go crying to the teacher. And that's what happened. Somebody went crying to the teacher. And I just don't understand it, because my large view of life, just a combination of stoicism and just understanding energy, and I don't know, it's just, I want to live in peace. So why would I want to create chaos for somebody else? Why can't we all just live in peace and coexist? It just doesn't make any sense why people get so butthurt or so emotionally invested in the smallest things. It's like, oh yeah, I got him. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and it's just like, one, it's good to know how sensitive Amtrak is, or at least certain folks at Amtrak are.
Yeah.
But
I
then
mean,
Oh,
two,
yo, I got a story. Hold on, I
Yeah.
got a story about Amtrak. Here's another story about Amtrak, and then let's go ahead and wrap it up after this and do some final thoughts on leadership. There's definitely a lot more that we can talk about, but we'll probably hold some of that to some of our private meetings. And by the way, guys, just a reminder to you that the Men of Now, we are closed currently. We will be reopening in January, so definitely look up for that announcement. But with this whole Amtrak thing, so I don't remember exactly what day it was, whether it was Wednesday last week or 2 weeks ago, or whatever it was. Time's all blending together. But my sister is like, I'm just getting this spam phone call from somebody, and I didn't know who it was. And turns out, I guess she was using her work phone to call me because she had, when she was getting up, because she came to visit, when she was getting up off the Amtrak train, I guess her phone was on her lap, her personal, and it was left on that train. And she was doing everything she could with Amtrak to make sure, like, they identified it. Okay, they finally get through to somebody like a couple days later, and they're like, yes, we have identified it on this train at this time, like this train number, it's at this station, and it'll be sent back to you. Doesn't hear anything for another day, then calls back like Amtrak directly, and they're like, we don't have it. I don't know. And it's like, what, like, are you gaslighting me, or like, what are we doing here? And then it took another couple days before they're like, oh, yes, we do actually have it. And now we're going to send it back. So in the time that I have gone without proper, like, plumbing, bathroom, all that type of stuff, she's gone without a personal device. And it's so funny to me how incompetent people are. Because like when you're trying to deal with somebody and it's like, no, I've been on the phone with other people and it's confirmed to be there, and you're telling me it's not there. So who is lying, you or the other person? And then they come back with, well, I don't know, sir. I don't know the conversation you have with the other person. I can't stand deflection. And when it comes to doing leadership the right way, the burden of leadership, you need to take that goddamn fucking accountability. Because otherwise you're just, one, you're fucking annoying to deal with. But two, it's just like, is that the camp you really want to be in? Do you want to be in a camp and around others that completely skirt responsibility? Or do you want to be with a camp of people that are like, yeah, we all just want to be happy in life. We all want to be successful in life. And if somebody makes a mistake, okay, this is the mistake made. What do we do next? I think that's the most important thing to kind of understand from this, that I don't care how fucking confident Biden was that the Hunter case was going to go in his favor, or if it was his camp that was saying that it was going to go in Hunter's favor. I don't fucking care. Because when you say you will not pardon him, and then as soon as he's found guilty on 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 felonies. These are not crimes. These are felonies. And you go back on your word and then go ahead and let it go. I understand some of the different aspects, and it is difficult when you are the leader of a team and figure out how you navigate it. But man, when you're honest, transparent, and accountable, a lot of doors and a lot of great people in your life will open up. And I have to say, I'm a hell of a lot happier now than I was before, where I tried to skirt accountability like that. So
Yeah,
let me turn it to you, AJ, for some final thoughts on this, and if you want to go ahead and plug any of your stuff.
Yeah. we actually had a conversation right before I started my interview for lead position. Me and my manager and my junior technician that I was on shift with at the time. Anything that happens in this facility, well, I am here and I am the guy in charge, is my responsibility. It could be my junior technician's fault. My junior technician could blow something up, but at the end of the day, it's my responsibility to make sure he doesn't blow something up. And if he does blow something up, I got to take that hit myself. Just like my boss has got to take the responsibility overall and explain to his boss what happened. So that's one thing that when you move into more senior and more leader roles, you need to understand that the guys underneath you could be fucking up all the time, but at the end of the day, it is your responsibility to make sure that they don't. And if they do, take that hit yourself. Your boss will respect you more. And unfortunately, you may end up getting terminated, but they don't ask those things anymore at job interviews why you were terminated. They just can only verify that you worked there and how much you got paid. That's about it. Plug, you can find me on the Dragon Ship. You can find me on Glenn's. I do have a book out right now. And the first forward has been finished up in the audio recording, and it sounds amazing.
Good stuff, man. Got AJ's book right here. It's a part of the series, Essential Skills of a Masculine Presence, and his is on psychology and emotion, which is exactly what we're talking about, managing your emotions.
Yeah.
So definitely look out for that. I'll be able to share a link with everybody at some point. But outside of that, let's jump to you, Josh. Final thoughts on this, and let's hear a little bit more about this crypto webinar you're going to be doing, because it is a very interesting time with the markets.
Oh, definitely interesting time, and it's going to get a lot more interesting. But on the subject, I'd say my final thoughts on that are it's critical to have that accountability, because your life is the end result of your choices. So even things that fall outside of your direct responsibility, you still are responsible for how you react to them. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to happen to you that, isn't your fault, wasn't your doing, whatever. But how you react and respond to that, you're still very, very much accountable for. So the sooner you take accountability, the greater control and degree you can shape your destiny. And so that really is the key takeaway from, accountability and leadership, is that in your own life, you need to really take that accountability for everything, even the stuff that, again, wasn't your fault, but how you react and respond to it, because then that will help you really guide and dictate your destiny to where you want to go, versus getting stuck in the same loop over and over and over and over again. So that's those will be my kind of final parting words on that subject. But as far as the webinar goes, definitely excited for it. It is this Sunday, and we'll be at noon Pacific time, and we will be covering some very interesting tidbits on what is happening in the market, but also how you can really position yourself to capitalize on it, with a Q&A session. So I'll be making sure that I get everyone's questions answered and addressed. So that way, if there's a specific question about something that isn't covered, we can get you a direct answer on that. So, and the cost of it is only a fraction of what it would be for a normal consulting rate. So it's going to be a lot of very good information that could potentially make you a lot of money for very, very, very low amount. Because again, I'm not that smart, but I pay attention to things, and so I'm very, very much a proponent of sharing the resources and knowledge that I've gained to help other people out, so that way they can have the success that I've had, or have even greater success.
Yeah, no, it's it's kind of crazy. Like when you just look at the cost versus like simple gains that you just get, not immediately, always. It depends on where you are in certain parts of the cycle. But dude, your advice makes the money for the course like almost immediately. It's a joke. It's a joke.
You give some advice, and someone 15x's their money on a certain call, they start buying you a lot of dinners all the time, which is just one example that happened last cycle, and there's quite a few of those. So yeah, no, there's a lot of good interesting stuff out there. But also too, it's, again, I just want to arm you to help you position yourself best, so you can make the best win for yourself. And again, whatever, if you're a conservative strategy, your total degen gambler strategy, whatever that may be, there is a way for you out there to win. So I just want to help point you in the right direction so you can win.
Awesome. Dude, I'm so excited. Definitely going to be there, and definitely looking forward to seeing both the Men of Now community there, as well as everybody else who's able to buy in. And I'll be sharing some more information about that on the Dragon Ship this Saturday. It's going to be a fun show. It's going to be a fun show. I think Mike's going to be hosting. But this was a really fantastic discussion, guys. I think that when we think of that burden of leadership, like some people don't want to be leaders, and that's okay. But those that do, you need to understand the psychology behind a lot of different things. And yeah, accountability is a huge one for me. But there's a heck of a lot more that I know that we're going to end up talking with the group about. Is just what those skills need to be for you to rise to those ranks should you want to be a leader, whether it be a leader among whether to be actually a leader in your family, or be a leader in the workplace, or be a leader amongst your peers. So it's just a really interesting case study of kind of what's going on here. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we go. But thank you, gentlemen. I very much appreciate it. And until
you,
next
Hood.
time, guys. Until next time, guys. I don't have anything to say after that.
And we're out.
That's a wrap.